Welcome back to the Poor Sports Seattle podcast. It's Casey McLean. Recording this live. You can decide if you want to watch it live. Thank you for watching it live if you are, and for watching it later if you're doing that also. It's Tuesday. Typically record on a Monday, but we had President's Day, and I will for the amount of money this podcast makes, which is negative dollars. I will take every government holiday off. My kids were off of school, so. We went and did that. We went and did stuff as a family instead of me podcasting to you. But I got some Seattle sports stuff to talk about. I'm going to talk about the Seahawks, my off-season wish list as we get into the official off-season. Also, by the way, went to start the podcast, immediately felt like I had to sneeze. So at some point during this podcast, I will very likely sneeze, but it just went away. I was like, as the intro music was playing, it went away. Also, come see me do stand-up. I'm going to pull up my calendar real quick. I'm a professional. I'm a professional, folks. I'm very bad at podcasting. Let me pull up my calendar so we can see what stand-up dates I have coming up. I'm going to be at Tacoma Comedy Club all weekend hosting for Chad Daniels, which is awesome. I've never gotten to work with Chad Daniels before. He's like a comics comic. Every comic you know loves Chad Daniels pretty much. And then I'm on Roastamania. I'll be opening for Brent Lowry at the Olympia Black Box Theater and hosting my own show at Bickerson's Brewhouse in Renton, Washington on March 1st. Go to CaseyMcLeanComedy.com for other dates. Some of those might not even be on the calendar, by the way. The Chad Daniels thing is a very new revelation. I almost had to cancel my own appearances on those Olympia and Renton shows, but I remembered that I will also be at the Washington Huskies basketball game on March 1st with my father-in-law. So come out to that. Come say hi to us. I don't give a shit if you come to that or not. I'm going to talk about the Seahawks offseason wish list from my perspective. I'm going to go through 2 mock draft simulators, which if you hate that, I'm sorry. Also, you're supposed to do mock draft Monday. I think that's what's going on. I don't know if I'm going to do it every Monday, but after the combine, I'll probably do it every Monday until the draft. So if you hate that, tune out, I suppose. Most of you are tuning out already. I'm also going to talk about, I saw an interesting conversation, or not even a conversation, it was like to Nick Wright of Fox Sports, who's a guy who's like risen to stardom completely outside of my like sports journalism stardom, completely outside of my purview. I'm not familiar with a ton of his work, but people are like, this is the next guy. Is he or not? I don't know. But he was talking about how Kevin Durant is certainly not a top 10 player, made a decent argument. And then the reason I became aware of it is because Stephen A. Smith was talking about it. And I don't really care about Kevin Durant's, like, where he ranks in the top 10, but I want to talk about his legacy, maybe a little bit like esoterically, if that's even the right word, as it relates to were the Sonics to have stayed and how we would feel about Kevin Durant. I've talked about this a little bit before, but I want to talk about it again, just because I was thinking about Durant. And then finally, I want to talk about I'm maybe as pessimistic as I've ever been going into a Mariners season. I think I share that with a lot of the fan base. I don't think that makes me unique or interesting, but I've made it to February without finding a single reason for optimism. I guess I would say I was previously very skeptical of the idea that the Mariners had changed in any sustainable way as a result of Edgar Martinez taking over as the hitting coach and Dan Wilson taking over as manager and whatever they were doing in September. I have a little bit of optimism in that regard after looking at some stats. And then, I think that's it. So we're going to talk about those things briefly. We'll start with Durant because Durant's interesting. By the way, I looked up Kevin Durant's basketball reference page today. And I feel like I'm looking up Kevin Durant's age is like looking up, like going in and stepping on a scale at the doctor for me. Because I'm like, I remember very vividly Kevin. I had just moved in with my first roommate. And is that right? Was I 21 years old when so I had just moved in with my first roommate. He was, I lived with a 37-year-old. I was 21 years old. I lived with a 37-year-old man, who we worked in a factory together. And He was on nights, I was on days, I think, but I remember Durant made his debut maybe on or around Halloween. I think it might have been on Halloween, but I very specifically remember Halloween 2007 giving out candy and watching Kevin Durant play. Is that now I'm gonna actually check that to see if there's. I'm gonna pull up his game logs and see if I'm completely full of shit or not. Game one, Halloween 2007. Was so excited to see Kevin Durant, and obviously Sonics fans, fans of the former Seattle Supersonics, they remain fans of Kevin Durant. I think his legacy has held pretty strong in Seattle. We love Kevin Durant. He did no wrong. He did the thing that a lot of like pop stars used to do, which is, from our perspective, he died young. We didn't have to see Kevin Durant become this kind of enigmatic, mercurial kind of guy that like kind of pushed his way out of different situations. And I think certainly isn't it in the way that LeBron James, I think, is a corporate shill and a ambassador for basketball. Kevin Durant's never really sought to be those things. And has been a contrarian and a whatever. I think this is probably something that people use in a pejorative way, but as like an independent thinker, and I appreciate that about him. I've never lost my affection for Kevin Durant, but I looked it up. Kevin Durant is 36 years old. This is the guy. This is the guy that was like the last young guy around my age. I'm 38, he's 36. And, I've missed, because of the Sonics leaving, I've missed essentially his entire career. I'm not like as ardent an NBA boycotter as I used to be. I think realistically, like getting married, I started dating my wife shortly after that, 2010. We ended up getting married. We have kids. These like kind of superficial things that you hold very sacred, you start to get rid of, right? So like, I gave up the ghost. I was boycotting Starbucks for years. I gave up the ghost on that. Not like I'm a big Starbucks fan, but I'll drink a Starbucks if it's the only thing available. I will watch an NBA game if it's on. I don't seek it out. It's not appointment viewing for me anymore, frankly. Like I'm not, I don't watch the finals every year. Like it doesn't matter to me like it used to. And I used to be a huge NBA fan. Yeah, now it's just not part of my viewing appetite, and that's really sad because I love basketball. I think basketball is one of the best sports to watch, and but yeah, so I've missed Kevin Durant's career, most of his career, because he left Seattle on good terms as like a guy who very obviously loved the city of Seattle, a guy who really was not happy. It didn't seem like that the team was moving to Oklahoma City. And I also, by the way, I used to write for Bleacher Report, and I remember writing, he did a commercial for, I can't remember the company. It might have been a shoe brand. I can't remember what shoe brand he was associated with, but there was like rap lyrics that I was trying to like deduce the meaning of if he was sending some secret message to Seattle Supersonics fans. And I think that Kevin Durant has remained beloved here because he obviously loved the short time that he spent in Seattle. And so is he a top 10 player? I think if you go look at the stats, if you go look at the legacy, I just think there's no way you can reach that Kevin Durant was the top 10 player. I just don't think you can do it. And the guys that they tried to compare him to were like Kobe Bryant. They tried to do is he better than Kobe? Is he better than Larry Bird? Is he better than Tim Duncan? Like, well, I think there's just no way to get him in the top 10, but part of that is because some of the greatest basketball players to ever live have played in the last couple decades. Like it's been an immense talent surge in basketball since Michael Jordan. And to me, it doesn't matter. To me, Kevin Durant will always be a legend. I'll always love Kevin Durant. And I think that if the Sonics had stayed in Seattle, I think our opinion of him would be not very good. I think it would be like Alex Rodriguez or like the first couple of years after Ken Griffey Jr. left, or Randy Johnson, who pushed their way out of Seattle and left the team kind of fucked. I think that's how we would feel about Kevin Durant if the Sonics stayed, which is weird that because they didn't stay, we just all get to guilt-free love Kevin Durant. And I do. I do love Kevin Durant. He's one of my favorite players in basketball, the very little that I watch. Also has the exact game that I like a guy that can go inside but is a big three-point shooting. These guys, I love. Like when the Sonics drafted Vladimir Radmanovic, I was sure that dude. I was like, that dude is going to be a star. He's the next Peja Stojakovic. I loved Peja Stojakovic also. These bigs that can shoot, or not even. I mean, Durant's not even a big. He's just a big long three. But a guy like that can shoot and handle. Oh man, what a dream. He's a mismatch. Oh, I love that. Love a guy like that. Okay. I want to talk about the Mariners briefly because, I mean, I don't know. Tell me what your optimism's like. Mine's at essentially 0. I have, which is not really fair, right? This was a very good, I don't know, very good. I'm like stuck between two adjectives. This was a good team last year. A team that was very close to making the playoffs. And with that rotation, a team that and this is the argument for pushing over the finish line, is a team with a good rotation that could push them deep into the playoffs. Obviously they've made limited additions. I'm not gonna defend their offseason in any way. I don't think it's defensible, and I'm the only thing I will defend, I'll be honest with you, and I'm gonna disagree with a lot of fans on this, is I'm very happy they didn't trade away prospects. I just don't think that the Mariners are gonna be able to acquire talent, especially offensive talent. What is it going to be? The next 20 years? Like, how long until, let's say the Mariners, and I'm going to talk about it in a moment, the improved offensive performance, but let's say the reputation of the Mariners as an offensive wasteland goes away. How long is it going to take for that to go away? It's probably at least the next 5 or 6 years. It's going to be hard to attract offensive talent. It's also not like Washington State is a hotbed for baseball talent. And I think most of the guys that come out of here end up being pitchers also, by the way. Who'd be like a big, who's an example of, I mean, obviously like Mike Blowers came from here. Reese McGuire got drafted out of, I think he was a Washington State guy. Anyways, this is gonna bug me. I feel like I'm missing some people, but there's definitely guys. I suspect there's guys from those good Washington, University of Washington baseball teams that I'm missing. But my point is, that's the only thing that I think is redeeming about their offseason, is that they did not trade away their offensive prospects. I don't care. You can trade away a starter, like trade away Luis Castillo, trade away one of the younger starters. I'm on board with that because I think that the Mariners can cultivate pitching through the draft. I think that they can attract free agent pitchers here, which we have seen. We saw them attract Robbie Ray. We've seen them re-sign Luis Castillo. I think they're going to have, like, for an example of a much lower profile trade, but I think if they tried to extend Randy Arozarena right now, I think it'd be very difficult. I think Randy Arozarena is rightfully, and everything I heard last year was that he was upset, did not want to be a Mariner anymore. And I understand that. A guy that's approaching a contract year that goes to a place where his offensive production is going to crater almost no matter what he does, by the way. I understand being frustrated with that trade. So the Mariners did some stuff, though. I felt like sometimes when I say stuff like that, I feel like it sounds like I'm doing like a trumpet. But the Mariners did some stuff. That was probably not even a good Trump. I'm gonna share. This is not gonna be exciting for anyone that's on the podcast on the audio only version, but the Mariners last year. So in September and October, if you split them out for like September, October at home. So take away all the benefits of being on the road. Last year I talked about how the pitching staff was not historically good and the offense was not historically bad. I stand by both those things. In the final weeks of the season, in the last month of the season, the Mariners were the fourth best team by WRC plus at home. and I think second best when you take away the home split. And it wasn't just like because it wasn't only because the stadium is very difficult to hit in, which it is very difficult to hit in, but they did like WOBA, which is not a stadium adjusted number. They were 337. They were better than a lot of teams in baseball. And typically, by the way, at the end of the year, stadiums are getting cold again and offense starts to fade, and the Mariners were good. So why would that make me optimistic? And it didn't make me optimistic before looking into it. I thought there was some gimmicky stuff. I think, and I'm going to talk about this in the upcoming weeks, I think Victor Robles is probably not a starting outfielder in baseball. I think he's a very good utility outfielder, a guy that can play, I believe, all three positions pretty well. If he can be a league average hitter, that's an extremely valuable guy. Get that guy 300 plate appearances, 400 plate appearances, and, 700-800 innings in the field or more. Is he a guy that should be like, he's the guy holding down right field? I don't think so. I think they have some redundancies. Like, I think if Robles struggles, they can put Luke Raley out there. The easiest position in baseball to find a quality hitter is DH first base. I think they could probably find someone later in the season there's a bunch of these guys around, right? This is where the source of offense was in the offseason that they did not invest in. The Pete Alonsos, the Christian Walkers, the Paul Goldschmidts. Like, could the Mariners find a Paul Goldschmidt equivalent at the deadline if they need to? Sure. I'm worried about the team relying on expecting a lot from Victor Robles. But like I said, they have a redundancy there. Luke Raley, as your everyday first baseman, as long as the defense isn't horrific, is, I think, an upgrade over what they had last year. But that being said, the Mariners did this with a reduced strikeout rate. They were 23.3% strikeout. They had a 23.3% strikeout rate, which, by the way, was like middle of the pack, 17th worst, or I guess that would be alternatively said 14th best, so very middle of the pack. A batting average on balls in play, which is usually the stat that I look at that goes like, is this because they just were more lucky? It's only 301. That's like in the range of normal. That's not some crazy batted ball luck. So they put the ball in play more often, and it became a hit more often. They were hitting the ball harder, presumably. I actually don't have the StatCast stuff, but I didn't even bring this up. These are the rankings, by the way, for strikeouts. So if the Mariners can turn that around, if their offense can be, 20% better, if the Mariners had a 20% better offense last year, that's a playoff team. I don't think they're going to sustain whatever the difference is between, I think they were like a 95 WRC plus or something like that. They're not going to be 30, 35, 40% better for a whole season with basically no additions, with a healthy Jorge Polanco, and then very limited additions, and that also, by the way, includes like not bringing back Justin Turner. Trading Justin Turner for Donovan Solano when I'm not convinced that's an upgrade, even. And not literally trading, but like functionally trading those two for each other. So yeah, there's some optimism. I have some optimism, but not a lot. Still not a lot. And it's nice to have some. Maybe I'll just keep getting the glasses will keep getting more rose colored as the season approaches. But all right. So I'm going to talk about now a professional broadcaster would have some sort of transition here. I'm just going to tell you, this is my off-season wish list for the Seahawks, and I'm happy to hear where you agree or disagree, because the Seahawks have a lot of promise. They obviously, much like the Mariners, nearly a playoff team, but I think also a lot of reason for worry and for skepticism and for, like, again, they just deserve all of the criticism they have received. Here's what I believe the Seahawks need. Here's what I believe the Seahawks need in the offseason is, so there's a lot of conversation around Geno Smith. This is working under the assumption that what they've been saying the last couple weeks is honest. That what Mike McDonald and Clint Kubiak and John Schneider have said is honest, which is that they want to and plan on keeping Geno Smith. I think they need one young quarterback. Now the question becomes, is that I think they need one young quarterback in addition to what they have on the roster right now, which is Geno Smith and Sam Howell. So if they're going to keep Sam Howell, I think that guy's probably like a 5th, 6th, 7th undrafted free agent kind of guy. If they're going to move on from Sam Howell in some way, be that they trade Sam Howell away or whatever, or you got to figure out a way to carry 3 quarterbacks, which I don't think is that crazy. It's just not something. It's about half the teams in the NFL carry 2 quarterbacks. It's not a given that teams are going to carry 2 quarterbacks. And I think if you go get a guy, I said this when they were looking at Anthony Richardson. I had this theory about what Anthony Richardson would look like on the roster. Is a guy, I think if you have a guy like Anthony Richardson on the roster, you should carry 3 quarterbacks because you could have packages that take advantage of his athleticism. Longtime Seahawks fans will remember a time when Seneca Wallace was Matt Hasselbeck's backup, and every time Seneca would come in for a play as a receiver or as a decoy or whatever, it was just dynamic, and it seemed to kind of tilt the field towards him because he was such a great athlete and a serviceable backup quarterback, but a guy who was such a good athlete that he just drew a ton of attention. But the Seahawks were always worried to play him, as I understood it, because if he gets hurt, then you got no backup. That's it. So you can't get him hurt as a receiver because you might need him as a quarterback later in the game. I think if you keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster and you got a guy like Anthony Richardson on the roster, yeah, get him in for 15 plays. Let him throw the ball, let him run the ball, let him be on the field and draw attention. Let him make opposing defenses worry. If he gets hurt and he's your 3rd string quarterback, he's your 3rd string quarterback. You still have a backup. But for that kind of guy, you're starting to narrow the kind of quarterback you're going to develop. So I'm not fully certain. I think like the guys that are potentially available to the Seahawks, the Jackson Darts, the Quinn Ewers, the outside of like Jalen Milroe and maybe some guys that are going to be later in the draft. I mean, if you can get Jalen Milroe on the roster as a 3rd quarterback and a guy that comes in for 10 to 15 plays and is just kind of an interesting piece in that offense, yeah, I'm into that. But the Seahawks are in a little bit of a tough position because they do have a young quarterback on the roster. The kid from Louisville, Tyler Shuck, is starting to get a lot of attention. I think that guy might be older than Sam Howell. That was like the big argument last year. You're like, Sam Howell's younger than Michael Penix. He's younger than Bo Nix. So is Sam Howell the answer? I don't think Sam Howell's shown anything to suggest he is the answer. But is Sam Howell serviceable? And does bringing in a guy like a Jackson Dart to be like a developmental guy? Jackson Dart's probably, by the way, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. I think Jackson Dart's going in the 1st round. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 first-round quarterbacks this year. And I think people are going to be really upset that if the Seahawks were to draft a quarterback in the 1st round, everyone's going to think Jackson Dart is a 2nd-round pick. I don't think Jackson Dart's making it out of the 1st round. I think it's possible. I don't think there's going to be 6 quarterbacks in the 1st round, but I think 4 is really within reach, and I think it's definitely going to be 3. If I lived in a state that allowed me to gamble on the internet and I didn't have to go to a casino like a fucking peasant, I would be betting on how many quarterbacks are getting drafted in the 1st round. But I live in Washington State, so I just have to complain about it on the internet. So yeah, that's where I got it at. What they need, 1 quarterback. I think they need to, and I don't need like a big. So Clint Kubiak wants a fullback. They're gonna figure out something at fullback. My guess is it's gonna be a guy from the tight end room, an H-back type. Last year, there were like they signed Jack Westover as an undrafted free agent. I think that kind of guy is now available for the Seahawks. There's some guys that I'm interested in that I think might be interesting fits for that role, But that's the kind of guy that I think the Seahawks will add for that, a guy that can play a little bit of tight end and a little bit of fullback. I also would like to see them bring in a running back to a young running back to push George Halani and Kenny McIntosh at the bottom of the depth chart, and also potentially be the guy that takes over in a year when Kenneth Walker maybe isn't healthy enough to stay on the roster anymore. Is Kenneth Walker on the last? I think he might be on the last year of his deal also. I mean, these guys are you're gonna have to keep rotating running back. So I'd like to see a young running back. I would like to see a significant investment in another receiver and 2 receivers if they trade DK Metcalf. That could be free agency. I don't think it's a great free agent class. I'd like to see an early-ish round pick. I mean, like a day 2 pick I'd be thrilled about. Day 2, by the way, is rounds 2 and 3. If there's a guy that's available, I'd like to see them draft a tight end or sign a tight end. 2, if they decide to move on from Noah Fant, which I think they probably should move on from Noah Fant. Offensive linemen, this is like obvious. I think they need 2 offensive linemen. They need one guy that can play inside. And my preference, I think they need 2 guys that can play inside. In a perfect world, I think the second of those guys will be someone that they draft who can be Charles Cross's replacement if he doesn't re-sign in the offseason. So I'd like to see them draft a guy high that can take over as the future left tackle of this team. Or if you think that Abraham Lucas can move over to the left side, I don't know. We're going to talk about the draft. I'm going to tell you this. I'm not like a scout. I'm not pretending to be a guy that's like grinding tape left and right. I'm aggregating scouting reports from people who know a lot more, have a lot more time, and a lot more knowledge. And also there's things that I like in a player that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So I would like a guy that can play inside this year, can start inside at left guard this year, and then can become the starting left tackle if Charles Cross moves on. And also an additional interior lineman, be that in the draft or free agency, someone to push or provide depth for Christian Haynes, Anthony Bradford, Lamea, like the and ideally maybe even that person can float around a little bit, because you're still not certain, by the way, that Abe Lucas is going to be healthy. You're still not certain that why can't I get the goddamn, the center's name is bugging me right now. Oh, it's gonna piss me off. This is quite embarrassing. Uluwatimi. I kept wanting to say Osi Omenyiora, who is, I believe, a pass rusher from the Giants many years ago. If you don't think Uluwatimi is the guy, or there's certainly a chance that he's not the guy, I'd like to see a guy who can float around a little bit. On the defensive line, I'd like to see, whether it's Roy Robertson Harris, which I think is, the Seahawks obviously like him. I don't think he's going to be back on the contract he's on, but I wouldn't mind seeing him come back. I think they need a true young nose tackle, or a true nose tackle, period. And then ideally that guy's young. There's just not that many of those guys. There's not that many 340, 350-pound dudes that can legitimately play defensive line in the NFL. There's a couple. We'll talk about one when we start talking about the draft. So I think one guy, one additional end, and an end in this case is like in the way that Leonard Williams is an end, in the way that not like an edge. That's the new distinction is defensive lineman, edge, linebacker. Those are 3 different positions according to many of the draft. I like that. I think it's actually a better definition, but I'm even further narrowing it to, I think the Seahawks need a nose tackle and an end. 2 edges, 1 to 2 edges. I think you're if the season starts and it is just Derek Hall and Boye Mafe, I think that's like completely acceptable. I think you'd be a lot happier if Uchenna Nwosu is healthy and plays a full season. Obviously, I don't think that the Seahawks are in a position to financially move on from Nwosu, and I think that supposedly he's like a great locker room guy, so that's probably not the move. And then, linebacker. I mean, if they re-sign Ernest Jones, it's different. I'd like to see a veteran starter. I'd like to see Ernest Jones. Corbin Smith, recent guest of the podcast, suggests that Ernest Jones may earn like between $12.5 and $14 million a year on his contract. I would say I'm not like thrilled at that prospect. I'm also a little skeptical of a guy that like could be traded for very little twice in a season would command like a 4-year $60 million salary to make him one of the higher paid or contract to make him one of the higher paid linebackers in football. I just don't. Maybe it's on the tape. I'm not out grinding tape. I thought Ernest Jones was great. I'd be very comfortable with him at 4 years, $40 million. I'd be a lot less comfortable at 4 years, $60 million. And then, they just need depth. They just need depth at that position. I think corners, they need 2 for depth. Safety, they need 2 for depth. I don't think those aren't priority positions, but I think they're certainly in a position where they could add there and it wouldn't be a big deal. So we'll get into these mock drafts. I'm going to tell you a little bit as time goes on. I don't have like a top 200 guys. I've got like guys that I like, and I'll bring them up as we see them go. There are guys I think I'm certainly not like I'm not pretending to be like some. There was a time in my life where I probably wanted to be like a true draft guy. I don't mind draft guys, by the way. I'm not denigrating draft guys. I like the draft. I was trying really hard to work out a comedy show because it's in Green Bay this year. And just a couple months ago, I was at Skyline Comedy Club, and I was like, I talked about it on this podcast. I went to Lambeau, and I was like, the draft is at Lambeau this year. What a cool thing to go see at Lambeau. What a unique, fun thing to go see at Lambeau. I don't think it's going to work out. Because, it's just like the amount of money I would make going out there, I would end up probably losing a couple $1,000 because it would be me taking like the lowest paying spot on a show with no lodging, and then paying to get into the draft and paying to fly, paying for lodging. Lodging is crazy expensive out there at that time. So I don't think it's going to work out. That's my guess. Maybe I'll be corresponding live from Green Bay, Wisconsin, but my guess is no. I love the draft. So we're gonna go through 2 mock draft simulators today. Is everyone excited? Does everyone love mock draft simulators? Is this good content? I don't know. I don't know if it's good content, but it's what we're gonna do today. Maybe we won't do it again in the future. Maybe I'll talk myself out of it in the future. But for now, we're gonna do the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator and the mock draft database.com simulator, and I'll explain both reasons why. Let's start out with, this is the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator, and I am the Seahawks with pick 18 in this draft. For the sake of just simplicity, I'm not going to do trades, okay? You can do a bunch of trades in these. It muddles the process. I guess I'll start with this. We'll start this draft. I have it set to slow so I can talk in between picks a little bit. If I was at the top of this draft, I'm terrified to take Travis Hunter. I'm terrified to take either of the top quarterbacks. If I was at the top of this draft, I would want to take Mason Graham. I'm actually a little bit scared of Abdul Carter, frankly. Mason Graham or an offensive lineman. I think Travis Hunter it's going to be scary because you can't really have a guy that plays, you just can't have a guy playing 130 snaps a game in the NFL for very long. If an NFL team is going to treat Travis Hunter the way the Mariners are treating Cal Raleigh and just burn him, like run him till the wheels fall off, maybe you could do it. But good luck having that guy be viable on a second contract. So some of the guys that I like a lot have already gone. Like I said, I like Mason Graham. quite a bit. I like Kenneth Grant. I think Kenneth Grant is the only nose tackle I would want. He's like a true nose tackle, I believe. This is my like amateurish scouting report. The problem with nose tackles, the reason why they're less valuable in a lot of cases, is because they're like 1.5 down players, maybe 2 down players. I think Kenneth Grant is a 2.5-ish down nose tackle. Tavondre Sweat last year was similar, where he was like a guy that had athleticism, that he could be like, if not a dominant pass rusher, someone who was like, didn't just shrink and disappear in the pass rush. Kenneth Grant has similar traits in that he's like very athletic for his size. So if you're in this spot, if the Seahawks are in this spot, I also don't think Will Johnson's going to last this long, probably. Where the Seahawks sit on this one, we're going to treat each one of these as though what's happening here and these rankings that they have and the way, because they're going to vary quite a bit. I think you start to look at this and you go, the obvious first need that the Seahawks have is offensive line. John Schneider has said, and I don't think he's gone back on this, by the way. I think a lot of people are reading into his offseason comments saying that, oh, he's learned the error of his ways and he doesn't think that guards are overvalued anymore. I don't think that's true. I think that he does not want to draft a guard in the first round. I keep seeing Tyler Booker mocked to the Seahawks. Last year it was Troy Fautanu. I don't think the Seahawks are drafting a guard in the first round, but what I do think, like I said earlier, is they need a contingency plan if Charles Cross leaves in the offseason. So what they have the opportunity to do is draft a guy who is a legit left tackle prospect that can also move inside to guard. The other thing they can do, it's a strong defensive line draft. It's a strong tight end draft. It's a strong offensive line draft, is my understanding, and a strong running back draft. So the Seahawks, I don't think, need to overdraft or rush to get someone here. In this case, I'm going to take Armand Membu to be a guy that can move inside, as I understand it, by the way. I'm not out here scouting bend or whatever the fucking all the terms of art are for draft nicks. My understanding is Armand Membu, not only athletic enough to move around to function in a Clint Kubiak system, but also can move inside to guard. So I'm with this pick, the Seahawks are drafting Armand Membu in this simulation. I actually think that in that circumstance, as that draft fell, that's the kind of, I don't think the Seahawks are ever going to be a team that wants to be pressured into drafting a quarterback in the first round. But the way that fell, where there was not like an elite offensive line prospect or defensive line prospect available there, and I guess I got to go back and check, because I think that Shamar Stewart was available. I believe Shamar Stewart is just like had zero production in college and that type of stuff. I don't really buy into college stats, but like when a guy is supposedly physically dominant but has zero production in college, that's a red flag. I think it's a position where they might draft Jackson Dart, is what I was getting at. I don't think they're going to ever feel forced to, but the way that fell, I believe I've like worked through this I've done enough simulations on this. This is like an ASMR or fidget spinner, like ADHD diversion for me, is to do these mock draft simulators. And I know that Jackson Dart's gonna be available in the second round on this mock draft simulator. I think anyway. There's sometimes there's randomness in this. I don't think that the Seahawks want to draft him that high. I also don't think he's going to last to pick 50 in real life. So if he does, and I'm the Seahawks, here's another guy I like. I like Darian Porter quite a bit. We'll take a quick look. 6'4", 200. Played a lot of snaps. It's interesting, by the way, I'm not like the first one to express this or to notice it, but like what people care about with quarterbacks a lot more now is like how many starts at what level of competition. And Jackson Dart had a lot of starts in the SEC. That is very good. There are a lot of guys in this draft that have a lot of starts against high-level competition. This is not a deep quarterback draft, but I think that the Seahawks, there's no reason the Seahawks should not be able to come out of this draft with a legit lottery ticket prospect at quarterback. So I know that the Seahawks, or I know that, like I said, Jackson Daugherty's ranked 122 by PFF. I don't think there's any way he lasts until, I certainly don't think he lasts till 122. I certainly don't think he lasts till 104.2, which is his average draft position on the aggregate in this in these mock simulations, the data they put together. These are the two guys I like the most. I like Jackson Dart and Quinn Ewers. After the first two, I like Jackson Dart and Quinn Ewers. If you can make a modest investment, second or third round pick in Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, I'm into that. I think Jalen Milroe's also very interesting. Like I said, I don't think that I would like him in the second or third round. If you can get him in the fourth round and you get him on the field. I think he's like a very dynamic player. Get him on the field. He's the kind of guy that I think you could carry as a third quarterback and let him develop behind Geno and Sam Howell. And I don't think that's necessarily true of a guy like Jackson Dart or Quinn Ewers. I don't think they provide some ancillary benefit that you could benefit from in 2025. So I'm gonna treat the draft as it is. Like I said, I'm gonna take a look at some of these other guys that are available. I get another guy I like Xavier Restrepo. I like Darian Porter. We drafted a tackle in the first round. I actually think Ariante Ursary is going to be a first round pick also, and a guy that he might be too big to move into guard, but I like him a lot. I don't really want to go offensive line because I don't think that's what the Seahawks are going to do. But if it were me, if I'm John Schneider, I'd be tempted to go offensive line. I also think Donovan Jackson, they have him listed as a tackle here. I think most people have him as a guard. And you saw up here Tyler Booker went 2 before the Seahawks picked. This is tough. Xavier Restrepo, in my opinion, and I could be wrong in this, is a little bit of a has an overlapping skill set. I don't think he's as complimentary to Jackson Smith and Jigba as some other prospects would be. So let me see. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So Jared Ivey. He's a guy I've seen in the first round. That's the kind of edge I think that the Seahawks will be looking for. A guy, he's listed at 6'6", 285. A lot of this might change after the combine when we get official weights on everyone. Although I imagine this 285 is, if it's been adjusted, it was from the Senior Bowl or the East-West Shrine Bowl. Guy that's 285 might be able to sneak over and play actually hand in the ground. I'm drafting Jared Ivey. Does anyone care about this yet? Nobody cares. Comment if you hate this or if you like it. I don't care. Tell me either. I deserve to have this information. I do think that'll be tempting in the first round. The 2 Texas A&M, I think they're both Texas A&M, right? The Stewart and Scorton are both, I believe, are both. Let me pause this real quick so it doesn't. I'm gonna pause. I'm not gonna offer a trade, but aren't they both Texas A&M? Shamar Stewart and where were you? Did he go earlier? Hold on. We'll find him. Oh, yeah. Scorton went right after. 2 picks after. Both 280, 290 edges. Whether they end up playing in the NFL at that weight and that size, I don't know. Whether they, again, I'm not scouting bend, grinding tape. I think that's the kind of guy the Seahawks are going to look for if they look for an edge. A guy that's by the way, Draymond Jones, I think, was, not at the price that he's going to cost if the Seahawks keep him on his contract, but I think that's a guy that makes a lot of sense in Seattle. A guy that can play the edge and that can line up on the line in a hybrid 3-4 defense. I think that's a guy that that makes a lot of sense in Seattle. But Um, I don't think you're going to see them necessarily going after like the Chris Clemens type, or maybe that might not be the perfect example, but like a Bruce Irvin type, a guy that's like strictly an edge, cannot play on the line. The Seahawks want, much like the Eagles had in the Super Bowl, they want to create pass rush by confusion, not necessarily by just strictly pushing more bodies towards the quarterback. So in this draft, my suspicion is, I think wasn't watching super closely, but I think the Seahawks are probably in a position. Jackson Dart's still on the board. Quinn Ewers is still on the board. I don't want Jalen Milroe this high. I'm not big on Will Howard or Riley Leonard. Let's pull this off, see if there's anyone that's like you can't live without. Okay. This is a guy that I like. One of my guys, we'll call him. Something about Ole Miss receivers. I think, if it weren't for Ohio State, we'd probably be talking a lot more about Ole Miss receivers. I like Trey Harris. I'll be curious to see what his measurables are. I like Trey Harris. I think he's going to go a lot higher than 82, frankly. He's 94th. I'm going to get a bad grade. They give you a grade at the end if you don't know. They give you a bad grade. I'm going to get a bad grade on PFF. I'm taking Trey Harris. He's one of my guys. I'm also, by the way, because of the way this draft, because I've done it enough times, I'll probably get a shot at Quinn Ewers with one of the next 2 picks. I think a lot of times I've seen him be available for, we could speed this up now that we're in the later rounds, but I've seen Quinn Ewers lasting until that 172nd pick that the Seahawks have. I don't think that's happening. Well, I don't know. Quinn Ewers is one of those guys where I would say, like, I'm not an incredible quarterback evaluator. My worst ever evaluation was, I thought Jevon Sneed, speaking of Ole Miss guys, by the way, I thought Jevon Sneed was going to be it. Back then, pro-style offense in a time when the NFL was more pro-style. Look, Jackson Dart still sitting there, pick 136. If that happens, first off, it either means that Jackson Dart has failed the pre-draft process from this moment on so badly. I mean, in this circumstance, you got to take Jackson Dart. If you believe in Jackson Dart at all, I think he's a quality prospect. I think that the Seahawks should not be viewing these prospects as though, even if they draft a guy in the first round, by the way, even if they draft Jackson Dart in the first round, they should be flexible and open to moving on from him if he's not the right fit at the position. They find out later, yeah, here you go. Quinn Ewers falls to, we're at 172. So yeah, I mean, at this point in the draft, I'm not going to pretend like I've got intimate knowledge of all of these guys and who I have ranked specifically. I'm going to pick guys based on the profile of player I think the Seahawks are going to want. We could draft Cody Simon. I don't know enough about Cody Simon to have a strong feeling. Anyway, I think at this point you're going to start seeing them draft. There's just so many good offensive line prospects, so many good defensive line prospects. I think they're going to start filling depth and draft it, but hopefully keep drafting best player available when possible. I'm drafting a center / theoretically most centers, I think, if they're not undersized, could probably slide over to guard. That might be, God damn. Listen, when I do this on my own, I do a lot of quarterbacks. I think the Seahawks could actually move on from Sam Howell and hold 2 quarterbacks. I'm not gonna force you to watch me draft Quinn Ewers, even though it's 184. We're in round 6. We'll look a little further down here. We did not fill. It's actually something I'm going to look at. Are there any nose tackles, like true nose tackles? Zeke Biggers, by the way, that's a great name for a nose tackle. Zeke Biggers is the best name for a nose tackle I've ever seen. Casey Hampton was pretty good. I don't know why. Casey Hampton feels like a 360-pound guy. Maybe it's just because the Casey Hampton that we knew but that feels like a big dude. I might be giving away something about my own body image also, but let's take the Johnny Walker Jr. If the Seahawks do have a propensity, they drafted Michael Jackson. There was a Kobe Bryant. By the way, there's another Kobe Bryant in this draft. I'm going to draft Zeke Biggers as a guy who's going to spend a down and a half on occasion playing nose tackle. Quinn Ewers ends up with the Rams in this, by the way, if you saw that. That's a scary spot for him. Quinn Ewers under McVay on a late round pick. What a dream. I like Curtis Rourke. I've already drafted 2 offensive linemen, so I'm not going to draft Miles Frazier. I think that would be probably decent value here. Let's see who I have drafted. Have I forgotten? Have I been So, dang, I drafted 3 Ole Miss guys. I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but I do remember now. The Lane Kiffin to Mike McDonald pipeline. The pipeline never really existed before, but the moment Pete Carroll's gone, the pipeline opens. Boy. So I think the offensive line needs are covered. You got a young edge, young quarterback, young receiver, theoretically a nose tackle. I don't know if Zeke Biggers actually profiles as a nose tackle. I think it's at a point where drafting best player available makes some sense, ideally at a need position. I'm going to go one more. It's the 6th round. We're drafting another interior lineman. Just hammer the position. This probably is not realistic unless they don't make any free agent moves at interior line, but yeah, and I mean, as you get to this last part, you're like, who are we? I know a guy I like to draft at the end is Jabbar Muhammad. He might be gone already. He could have gone. I don't know if Jabbar Muhammad's actually going to last until the 7th round. Did he? Oh yeah, so he's 269th. So like projected as undrafted, just about. 235th. I'll take Jabbar Muhammad. I'll take a flyer on Jabbar Muhammad. I don't think there's a single Husky that's going to get drafted this year, so take a flyer on a former Husky. Why not? I'm going to get a bad grade, like I said on this draft. My guess is a B- or a C. They like my Jackson Dart pick. It's usually not popular, Pro Football Focus, but they liked it this year, or this draft. Best pick of the draft is Miles Frazier, which I almost talked myself out of. A B. What do you think about this draft? What do you think if you're a Seahawks fan and they come out of the draft with this group of dudes? How do you feel? How do you feel about Membu stepping in as your starting left guard, theoretically becoming a left tackle option next year if Charles Cross leaves? I think that's the only way, by the way, that the Seahawks draft an offensive lineman in the 1st round is if that guy can be a left tackle in the NFL. It doesn't have to be in 2025, but if he can be a left tackle. All right, we're going to move on, and I'm going to tell you why I like Mock Draft Database a little bit. I wouldn't say more, but I like it in different ways. Is that the biggest hedge? So this is Mock Draft Database. By the way, they have a lot of really cool stuff on mockdraftdatabase.com. Right now we're on the simulator, but they have it's just like a wisdom of the crowd, like the aggregate big board, or what do they call it? Do they call it aggregate big board? Hold on, let's real quickly. Mock Draft Database. Consensus big board, that's what it is. So if you're like me and you're not someone that's like grinding through tape and trying to make your own 300 prospect big board, you can get like a rough feel, like a good head start on who are the. So we're going to look at I'm not going to actually, well, maybe I'll pull it up for a second. Does anyone give a shit about this? I don't think so. It's just a cool tool. Consensus big board, where the guy is projected to be drafted according to the big board. You can see, by the way, like I would not have the Seahawks draft Ashton Genty. I've seen some folks, I've seen some drafts, a handful of mock drafts where he's made it there, like these simulators, and in real life, I don't want the Seahawks to draft Ashton Genty. And if they do, I think there might be a fucking revolt from the analytics community. I think the running back position might be approaching being valuable, like the guy that's playing running back matters. I still think the vast majority of running games, the credit belongs to the offensive line and the scheme, but all right, we're going to we'll set up a draft. Hopefully I can change the speed because I I'm going normal speed. I can't wait that long. So we're the Seahawks, 7 rounds, 2025 draft, etc., etc. We're not going to name this draft. We'll get it started. I'm too scared to. I pushed settings. What happened there? Oh yeah, okay. We're gonna enter the draft room. Come on now, and we'll start. How do you feel about Cameron Ward? By the way, I mean, very interesting player, but it's just like the two quarterbacks at the top feel so volatile this year. Like if you draft, I'm terrified to draft a Sanders' son. I'm not going to make any trades, like I said, but you get prompted, you get push notifications of trades on this. So we're back in this situation. We have Ashton Genty fell to the Seahawks. I'm not going to draft him, like I said. Let's see. Okay, It looked like it was because of the resolution I had it at. I don't know if it was showing suggestions before. They're going to suggest Tyler Booker. They're going to suggest Shamar Stewart. I'm scared of Stewart because of the production. I would love to see. I will tell you this. I would have a very hard time if I know DK Metcalf is going to be gone, and obviously by the time the draft rolls around, DK Metcalf could be gone. I would have a very hard time not drafting Luther Burden, even though I think Burden is not necessarily a complementary piece to Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he is an additional guy who maybe thrives in the slot. I would have a hard time not drafting Luther Burden. I like Luther Burden a lot. I'm scared to draft Shamar Stewart. I think I'm going to draft Kenneth Grant here. I don't think the Seahawks are going to want to draft a nose tackle in the first round. I think that especially if they view him as a guy that's going to play 2 downs, I don't think they're going to want to draft him in the first round necessarily, but it's a deep defensive line draft. It's a deep offensive line draft, etc., etc. By the way, I don't know. I was sweating this out. I could see it happening. There were a couple of offensive line prospects. Ariante Ursary was slipping down the board. And then Gray Zabel, who has become the pick everyone loves to mock to the Seahawks. A guy who I don't think they're gonna spend a first round pick on, and a guy who is pretty commonly being drafted or is being mocked in the first round now. So Gray Zabel's like the obvious pick here, I think. I think that especially if you skip offensive line in the first round, I like Jackson Dart at 50. I'd be thrilled if the Seahawks could get Jackson Dart at 50. Quarterback position is absolutely more valuable, but I do think Geno Smith is a good quarterback. I think it'd be very hard. This would become a tough pick for the Seahawks. In fact, you can see, by the way, Trey Harris, another guy I like, is projected significantly higher in this draft. I think this is the kind of position where the Seahawks may be willing to, if a team was willing to, like move back 2 picks. With the assumption you're going to get one of the 2 guys you like and maybe add a little value. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to take Gray Zabel. I'm going to pretend like Jackson Dart never existed. I've never heard of him. I'm going to be upset when he becomes a Pro Bowler somewhere, but he got it. I mean, Gray Zabel's like, first off, I know that a lot of it's just draft type, but I think that the dude is like, has potential to step in. He's probably not a tackle in the NFL. Everyone says he's got short arms. Again, I'm not grinding tape, as I've said 50,000 times. Now there's like the top prospects. This is like a great example. The top prospects available at this spot are all defensive linemen. So going defensive line in the first round. I want to tell you, by the way, one thing I like less about Mock Draft Database is I want to be able to click on this guy and see height, weight. Let me see that Mock Draft Database. It's not a perfect spot here. The Seahawks have gone, or I'll blame myself, gone defensive line, offensive line, filled 2 of the biggest needs I think the team has. 2 guys that I think step in and play day one. Quarterback, how long ago did yours go? How annoyed can I be with myself on this? I don't even know how to I know on the... There we go. Let's go this way. Yeah, I think you went pretty early. Okay. He goes pick 67 to Cleveland. That's a tough break. I just don't have any. There's only one guy left. Curtis Rourke is the last guy on this list that I would be excited about. That I would be like, I would like to see I would not be upset if I saw the Seahawks draft a guy like a round early. Boy, I might have fucked myself if I go. I like Jaden Higgins a bit. I'm going to draft Jaden Higgins just because I'm going to move this on. I don't love the pick, but I'm going to draft Jaden Higgins, and I can hate it later, but I will tell you, I'm not as thrilled with myself. Jaden Higgins is a big target. This would be a guy that would make a lot of sense if the Seahawks moved on from DK Metcalf, a guy who might be able to step in and fill a little bit of that role. Thrilled, by the way, to see Dylan Gabriel fall off the board. I'm not a believer in Dylan Gabriel. I also think that's like an underrated difficulty that NFL teams have. Implementing a left-handed quarterback is difficult. It's tough. Would I have been thrilled if the Seahawks drafted Michael Penix and had to do it with Michael Penix? Sure. But I don't want his backup to be left-handed too, frankly. I'm surprised more teams don't do that. I don't care about this trade. I will say this is not shaping out to be the kind of draft that I wanted. The other Kobe Bryant is available here. I think this is the spot where I would start considering, like, I think the only guy left that I'm super interested at quarterback is Curtis Rourke. I believe that I heard, by the way, I thought I heard that Rourke had like a torn ACL all season, played with a torn ACL all season. And so it's possible that he's a guy that you can put on injured reserve. You're going to want to redshirt this guy. If you get a 4th round pick, you don't want that guy starting the first year anyway. Did someone take, I was going to say shit. Did someone take Curtis Rourke already? Tyler Shuck is a guy that I just don't have the excitement about him. I'm taking Curtis Rourke. It could be Tyler Shuck. I'm letting him sit for a year. Probably on IR if I'm right about that and he does have a torn ACL. I'm bombing this draft. There's no doubt that I'm bombing in this draft. Am I going to draft Kobe Bryant to play alongside Nope, he's gone now. Having 2 guys in your defensive backfield be named Kobe Bryant would be very exciting, I got to say. Okay, so I think that at this point, Terrence Ferguson, once again, we're at this point in the draft where it's like even the guys that I like are mostly gone. My list is certainly different than other folks. Oh, Kobe King is, I think, a legit. Oh, well, for name recognition, let's take a Rondé Gatz in the second. I remember his dad I believe his dad was very heavily. This is a reason to draft the guy. People like Rondé Gatz in the second. I can like him for a dumb reason. There's legit draft and analysts that like him for legit reasons. Was his dad heavily featured on Tecmo Super Bowl? I believe he was. I know Mark Duper was. I liked trying to bring the Dolphins to give Dan Marino a Super Bowl. That was because the Seahawks teams were so bad on those Tecmo Super Bowl games. By the way, I probably could have gotten Curtis Rourke here, it would seem. Is this a spot? Do you draft Trevor Etienne or a running back of some type? I don't know Holland Pierce very well. Let's see what Holland Pierce. I'm just gonna go straight off measurements. 6'8". I like that. 6'8", 345. If I see a just a fucking high effort and character, can you give me athleticism? Lumbering mover at times. It's tough. It's tough. All right, you can't. I don't think you can be a Clint Kubiak. I don't think I'm going interior. Yeah, we could go interior line again. We'll draft Miles Frazier. Because Zabel, by the way, Gray Zabel is also reputedly a very good center prospect. So maybe at that point you have Gray Zabel be your starting center, and you figure out left guard from the guys, left and right guard from the guys that are on the roster already, or a free agent signing. We'll reject this. This is not going to be, I'm not going to like this draft nearly as much. I will acknowledge that. Comment how much you hate it. I'm happy to hear it. And I can take it, by the way. I don't know if you know this, I've been going viral as a comedian recently. I can handle negative comments now. I've got plenty of negative comments. I can handle negative comments now. Okay. We're down to our final two picks. See, Jabbar Muhammad's a little bit higher here. My suspicion is that Jabbar Muhammad's going to actually go significantly higher than that, like 4th or 5th round. I'm going to draft him here because I think it's like a pretty good value. They're only giving me a B. Mock draft database, you're only giving me a B. The guy was fucking 20 picks below his rank, or past his. I was 20 picks later than his rank. How are you giving me a B? Also, by the way, like, I want the Seahawks to draft a running back, but I'm not even convinced I know what makes a good running back anymore. If you get me a guy, I want to see the combine. The combine will give me actual strong opinions. I'm willing to accept some of these big board rankings. Kobe King was the guy you have not addressed. You have not. I think I like Kobe King. I'm gonna give him. I'm gonna draft him here. I'm going to draft him here. The Seahawks need depth at linebacker. They might need a second starting linebacker. You're probably not looking for that guy in the 7th round, but I'm drafting Kobe King. One of 3 A's I received. The Gray Zabel at 50 pick got an A+. So yeah, this is where, and we'll see if they. I don't remember if they give you a full grade or what on here on. Yeah, so Kenneth Grant, Gray Zabel, Jaden Higgins, Curtis Rourke, Aronde Gadsden, Miles Frazier, Jabbar Muhammad, and Kobe King. I don't feel good about that. I feel a lot better about the PFF version. Please tell me which one you liked more. Thank you for listening, by the way. I'm going to end the podcast here. I'll try to do this again on Monday. I'm trying to make these fun, interesting, exciting, maybe longer also. Yeah, thank you for listening to the podcast. And hopefully I keep forgetting to, or when I don't think the podcast goes well, I'm less likely to put it out as an audio-only version. But please go subscribe over there also on Spotify. There's video and audio on Spotify. And go check that out so you won't miss one. Come back live every Monday/Tuesday if there's a holiday on Monday. Chat. There was no chats today. So there were people watching. I know there were people watching. I was watching the count. The whole time I was very self-conscious, but there were no chats. Chat it up. Thank you so much. Come see me do stand-up. I love you so much. Yeah, and Casey McLean Comedy, everywhere you get comedy. Go watch my special Do Not Shake on YouTube. And go watch this clip that I put out about my grandpa that's gone viral with a bunch of people not understanding the joke, for the record. I think that's what's helped it go so viral, is people commenting because they don't understand the joke, and then people commenting because people commented not understanding the joke. Go check that.